I did my project over the Precambrian era, just to go through it. The time of the Precambrian era was probably the earliest stage of life throughout all the different eras. Definitely the longest one. It lasted about 88 to 90% of the entire time that we've been here. It's when the atmosphere and continents were formed and developed. This era covered, like I said, 90% of history, dating back to 4.6 billion years ago. The animals and life of the Precambrian, there wasn't much life. It was too harsh of conditions to support much besides little organisms and crustaceans, plants, little organisms like coral, jellyfish. There's some octopus. Just some simple animals that are still around today. The plants of the Precambrian, during the majority of the era, the conditions were too brutal to support plant life. Like I said before, there's too much going on the surface. Just too much development and time that wasted. And the end of the Precambrian, it's interesting because towards the end of the Precambrian, all the oceans were completely full of life. They were just plentiful as they've ever been towards the end of the Precambrian, right before the Cambrian era started. The climate and weather of the Precambrian era, it was such a long era, so the temperatures and climate kind of varies throughout all of it, but for the most part, everything that I researched, it said it was around right at freezing, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, but that could have varied more or less on average. But in general, it was pretty cold, tough conditions, at least for the majority of the Precambrian era until right before the Cambrian era began. Some of the major events of this era, there wasn't a whole lot of anything very significant, but it's just interesting because most of the stuff that's significant in this era is a lot of stuff that we are researching still to this day, gaining more information on and still learning about, such as the fossils that were found in this era. Lots of fossils. The minerals and rocks are still a lot of the minerals and rocks that are around today that we can study. And the oxygen being induced and balanced at the atmosphere. That's what allowed a lot of the fish and animals in the ocean to become more plentiful and growing, is the carbon dioxide that they began to ingest. And I think that's it. Oh, no. The continents of the Precambrian were much smaller and thinner, and that's because of climate change, obviously. And where did it say? Yeah, the basalt layer is said to be what the ocean floor is today. And shortly after that is whenever the continental crust appeared and began to form the majority of the continents that we have today. Just growing them, making them bigger around all that water. And there's my works cited page. But that is it for the Precambrian era.